Now we shall study the conditions of a valid marriage and the form of divorce under Muslim personal law. Certain authorities, they say, the object of marriage under Muslim personal law is legalizing intercourse and procreation of children. They also say the contract of marriage under Muslim personal law is a contract pure and simple. Now let us go in detail about the form of marriage with respect to conditions of a valid marriage under Muslim personal law. Herein, normally there should be an offer and acceptance by the other party, wherein there should be consensus of minds, their intention to marry each other. But however, both the parties need not sit on a particular desk. However, they should accept for a contract of marriage. Here I must tell you one concept. The party should be of sound mind, and also there is a concept called dower involved with respect to Muslim personal law of marriage, what you call other way mahar. This dower or mahar, what you call the consideration emanating from the husband to the wife in lieu of entering into contract of marriage. Here you must understand this dower is of two types. It is divided into prompt dower and deferred dower. This prompt dower is that part of the dower to be paid by the husband immediately after the contract of marriage. With respect to deferred dower, is normally is a deferred payment, that is after the dissolution of the marriage, either by death of the husband or by dissolution of marriage by the husband through talaq. What would be the mahar, that is the dower to be paid by the husband to the wife in lieu of entering into the contract of marriage? This is very important. Now we must know one thing. There is one enactment called Dowry Prohibition Act. This Dowry Prohibition Act clearly says consideration should not emanate from one person to the other in lieu of entering into the contract of marriage. However, there is a specific exemption given in section 2 of the Dowry Prohibition Act, wherein dower is excluded from the purview of the concept called dowry. So because of that, this dower is not considered to be illegal under Muslim personal law. Now we see, as I told you, there is an offer, there is acceptance and consideration with respect to marriage. Now the second condition is with respect to capacity of the parties to enter into contract of marriage. When you say capacity to enter into contract of marriage, as far as Muslim personal law is concerned, attainment of pivotry. Attainment of majority, here we mean attainment of pivotry. That is, the man and the women, when they physically attain majority, that is attainment of pivotry, they enter into contract of marriage legally. But you must understand one thing. There is one enactment called Child Marriage Restraint Act. It is applicable to a Muslim also. Naturally, if a person has not attained majority, or even if he attains majority, if he below 18 years, naturally, he infringes, or what you call he violates the rules with respect to Child Marriage Restraint Act. That is, he contracts a child marriage. Thereby, though under Muslim personal law, if a person is below 18 years, though has attained puberty, though it is valid under Muslim personal law, he comes within the purview of the Child Marriage Restraint Act. Thereby, it is a punishable offence. They can be put back in the parts. Even the person who witnesses the marriage, knowing pretty well that it is a child marriage, can be put back in the parts. Not only that, even a marriage hall proprietor, a owner, who has lent the marriage hall for celebrate the marriage, pretty well knowing that it is child marriage, he can also be put behind the bars, irrespective of the fact whether he belongs to a Islamic faith, or a Christian, or a Hindu, or a Jew, or a Parsi. So from this what to understand is, basically a person, though have attained majority under Muslim personal law, he should not violate the child marriage restraint act. But one thing you must understand here, as I told you, under Muslim personal law, a person attains majority can enter into contract of marriage under Muslim personal law. The marriage is valid. The children are legitimate. They can inherit property. However, they can be put back in the pots. Now we see a person who has not attained puberty also can enter into contract of marriage through their guardians. That is, marriage guardians called Jabar under Muslim personal law. The person who can act as a guardian may be either father, thereafter the brother, the mother, so on and so forth. So they can also act as a guardian for contracting marriage to a Muslim, whether he or she, though have not attained puberty. As I told you, it is valid in Muslim personal law, but they can be taken to task under Child Marriage Restraint Act. Now we see with respect to religion. As far as Muslim personal law is concerned, a Muslim can marry another Muslim. A Muslim cannot marry a non-Muslim. Those authorities say a Muslim can marry a Christian, but certainly he cannot marry under Muslim personal law. They say they can marry, it is irregular, it can be made regular when she passes to Islamic faith. But I must be cautious to say that such marriage cannot take place under Muslim personal law, because such marriage can take place only under Christian Marriage Act, which permits any one's spouse can be a Christian. So I am concerned to say that it cannot be called as a Muslim marriage, it can be called only as a Christian marriage. Now we see from this what we understand is, a Muslim can marry another Muslim under Muslim personal law. Now we see, as I told you, person who has sound mind, attain majority, normally they can enter into contract of marriage. However, though both of them belong to Islamic faith, they are Muslims, still there may be some constraints to enter into contract of marriage because of certain circumstances. For example, by virtue of consanguinity, by virtue of blood relationship. I should say, a Muslim can marry another Muslim, but a Muslim should not marry his or her own ascendant or descendant. For example, her own father, his own mother, her own grandfather, his own grandmother. Both of them are Muslims. They have attained majority. They are of sound mind. However, because of blood relationship, they cannot marry each other. So like father or mother's descendants, for example, full brother, full sister, consanguine brother, consanguine sister, uterine brother, uterine sister, so on and so forth. You see, they are constrained by virtue of consanguinity, by virtue of blood relationship, they cannot enter into contract of marriage. So these are such circumstances wherein, though both the parties belong to Islamic faith, though they are Muslims, by virtue of consanguinity, they cannot marry each other. So like, the prohibited relationship may come into existence by virtue of affinity. That is by virtue of one's own marriage with another lady. That is, a Muslim should not marry the ascendant or descendant of his wife or her husband. For example, the mother-in-law, father-in-law, the stepchildren. Likewise, one should not marry wife of any ascendant or descendant. For example, stepmother, the daughter-in-law. So from this what we understand is, these are all such circumstances wherein, though both the parties are Muslims, they cannot enter into contract of marriage because of prohibited relationship, either by virtue of consanguinity or by virtue of affinity. Now you see, under such circumstances, by virtue of fostered relationship between the parties, they cannot marry each other. For example, a Muslim fosters a child, probably he may be about 25 years old, and the girl may be about 18 years old, they have attained majority. However, if the child is a fostered child, he should not marry the child. So these are all such circumstances wherein the parties come within the ambit of the prohibited relationship. From the foregoing we come to understand that there should be an offer, acceptance, consideration emanating of the husband, what you call the dower. The person should be of sound mind, belong to Muslim faith, and they should not be within the degrees of prohibited relationship. Now we shall go to the dissolution of marriage under Muslim personal law. When I say dissolution of Muslim marriage, it can take place under two circumstances. Either by act of the parties, that is the parties themselves, they go for dissolution, either unequivocally by the husband or intervention of the court by the, when a petition is filed by the lady. However, when he or she dies, naturally their marriage is dissolved. However, we are going to talk of the dissolution of the marriage by the husband under Muslim personal law, this is by act of parties. Normally, under Muslim personal law, the male need not go to a court of law to seek a divorce, because under Muslim personal law, the Muslim man can as well, without the intervention of the court, can divorce the wife by pronouncing talaq. Talaq means unequivocal intention on the part of the husband to divorce the lady, thereby to dissolve the marriage. This talaq means repudiation. I divorce you. Now you see, the intention on the part of the husband to divorce by spelling the word called talaq is permitted under Muslim personal law. However, this talaq not at any interval as you feel like. Talaq can be pronounced only during the period of term. When I say term, what you mean is the period of purity. You see, the lady is under menstrual courses regularly. Actually, when she has a menstruation for 4 days or 5 days, the husband cannot pronounce talaq because it is called as not period of purity. He can pronounce talaq only after the menstrual cycle is completed, or 5th day or 6th day, till the end of the particular month. It's called period of purity, period of tar. In those days, he can as well pronounce talaq. Now the question is, can he pronounce talaq without the knowledge of the wife or in the absence of the wife? Naturally, the law permits, that is, Muslim personal law permits, talaq can be pronounced by the husband even without the presence of the wife, even without her knowledge, but it should be made in the presence of two witnesses, and there should be an unequivocal intention on the part of the husband to dissolve the marriage. That is sufficient. Now we see, this talaq, as I told you, intention on the part of the husband to pronounce divorce may be either talaq al-bida or it can be talaq al-sunnah. Now the talaq, as I told you, may be either al-sunnah or it may be al-bida. When I say al-sunnah, it may be ashan or it may be hashan. What it means? Normally, the husband pronounces talaq during a period of term. For example, this particular month, on 6th day, Suppose on 9th day, if with her consent enters into conjugal relationship, naturally the marriage is revived. Is permitted in Muslim personal law. Subsequently, the next successive menstrual cycle, if on 9th day, when she is on term, he pronounces talaq again, thereafter on 23rd day, he repents for his talaq, and he enters into conjugal relation with the wife, or he goes in seclusion with the wife, thereby their marriage is again revived. When he, on the third successive cycle, on the period of term, if he pronounces talaq, naturally he cannot revive the marriage by enters into relationship with her, because it is called talaq hasham. Now we see, from this what we understand is, as far as talaq al-sunnah is concerned, there is a phenomenon called an aspect of reviving the marriage when the husband repents for his talaq. So the Prophet Muhammad is actually convincingly says this is an approved form of divorce. The other form of divorce, as I told you, talaq al-bida, what he called triple talaq, pronouncing talaq thrice during the same period of term. For example, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. Talaq, talaq, talaq. That is what he called triple talaq. This is not encouraged by Prophet Muhammad, because it is the most unapproved form, wherein there is no possibility for reviving the marriage even though they enter into seclusion. Now we see what would be the sort of circumstances wherein the husband can as well pronounce talaq, thereby dissolve the marriage even without the intervention of the court. Now the latest trend among the Muslims are, they want to discourage this talaq al-bida, because it is not approved form by the Prophet Muhammad, and also there is no possibility for reviving the marriage. So what would be in a society, as far as possible, we should discourage dissolution of marriage, thereby, irrespective of the fact whether you are a Muslim or not, everybody has to discourage this aspect of dissolution by the society. Now we see, we have to study dissolution of marriage by the wife. As I told you already, there is no separate statute for dissolution of marriage under Muslim personal law with respect to a male. However, there is one enactment called Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act 1939, which is exclusively applicable to women. As far as this act is concerned, a lady, though cannot divorce the husband unequivocally on her part, she can as well go to a court of law, can seek the assistance of a court of law in seeking a divorce. Previously, they call it Ila or Zigar. They all has come within the ambit of the provisions of the Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act at present. Now we shall have an idea about and the modus operandi, or what you call the conditions for a dissolution of marriage under Muslim personal law by women under Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act 1939. Here you see, when the husband is not known continuously for a period of 4 years, certainly she can go to a court of law, make an application seeking divorce. The court is satisfied, the court can as well pass a suitable order for dissolution of marriage. Secondly, when the husband is not having matrimony for a period of 2 years, when he is neglecting the wife continuously for a period of 2 years without matrimony, she can go to a court of law. At this juncture, I must tell you one thing. I have told you already, under Muslim personal law, a person who has not attained puberty can as well enter into contract marriage through the guardians, what they call jaba. For example, a lady was given in marriage before she attained majority through her guardians, she can as well dissolve the marriage. She can make a petition to the court of law seeking divorce before completion of 18th year, provided the marriage is not consummated, what you call the option of pivotry. Here you see, she can go to court of law, she can ask for guidance from the court of law and get the divorce from the court of law. Likewise, you see, when the husband is suffering from venereal diseases or leprosy, she can as well make a petition seeking divorce, and the court can as well pass a suitable order for divorce. In this context, I must tell you, if the husband is impotent, naturally she can go to a court of law. But thing is that he should be impotent from the date of marriage. Then only it will give a cause of action for her. In this juncture, I must tell you one thing. Suppose the husband is suffering from venereal diseases, what you call the sexually transmitted diseases, she can as well go to a court of law. But she must prove that she has contracted the disease from the husband. In this context, I must tell you, there is one lacuna on the act. For a simple reason, suppose initially the disease was transmitted to the husband from the wife, then naturally it is not logical and it is illogical to ask for a divorce. But anyway, it's a question of evidence to be proved in a court of law to seek justice. Lastly, the act also clearly says, the husband is cruel, certainly she can seek divorce. When I say cruel, it means not only physical cruelty, it also mental cruelty. Physical cruelty also means beating, but mental cruelty may be of any form. For example, the husband says, I don't like you, you look like my sister, your features are like my mother. Naturally it hurts her sentiments, it hurts her feelings. She can as well go to court of law seek divorce because it is irritating her. He inflicts mental cruelty. Thereby, this also circumstance wherein she can as well go to a court of law, making a petition and seeking divorce. The court, taking cognizance of all circumstances, can give divorce depending on circumstances. So with that, let me close down the lecture on this particular topic. Thank you.